Welcome to our kitchen. Today we prepare medieval Pastello di Trote, a recipe for trout wrapped in a crust, from Anonimo Toscano's Libro della Cocina, written in the 14th century. We start with the ingredients. We need a trout, wine, flour, olive oil, an orange, and spices, black pepper, cloves, and saffron. We need 400 grams of flour with 80 milliliters of olive oil and 140 milliliters of white wine. Then we let the dough rest for half an hour. Meanwhile, we grind the spices with 2 pinches of salt. Other types of fish mentioned by Anonimo Toscano for this recipe include anchovy, sardine, and red mullet, but you can use any fish you like. Although medieval cookbooks, including Anonimo Toscano's Libro della Cocina, don't contain detailed instruction on preparing pastello crust, we find extensive information in Renaissance cookbooks. To make our pastello, we selected a recipe from the 16th century opera by Bartolomeo Scappi, for a dough that is still used today to make traditional pies and sweets in southern Italy. We roll a crust about half a finger thick and lay it on an oiled baking pan. We add the eviscerated trout, pour in olive oil below and on top, and sprinkle with the spices. Then we close the crust, leaving a hole in the middle. We also added some spices on top of the crust. If you prefer, you can mix them into the dough, as Scappi does with pepper, or skip this step. The tradition of wrapping ingredients such as fish, birds, or fruit in a crust and baking them originated in the antiquity and continued beyond the end of the Renaissance. Galen describes apples wrapped in dough, and similar preparations are found in the 15th century books by Michele Savonarola and Maestro Martino, as well as in the 16th century Banchetti et composizione di vivande by Cristoforo Messisbugo. Messisbugo describes a fish wrapped in a crust that is almost identical to Anonimo Toscano's version, and includes a description of a crust made with flour, eggs, salt, and butter or olive oil. The spices are saffron, pepper, cinnamon, and ginger, with the further addition of orange juice or orange slices, fennel, and oil or butter. Anonimo Toscano suggests using melted pork fatback in a version for the fat days of the recipe, as an alternative to the oil in the preparation for the lean days that we have chosen. To learn more about Anonimo Toscano's cookbook, read our book Libro della Cocina, Medieval Tuscan Recipes, which includes the translation and an introduction explaining the medieval tradition, ingredients, and basic preparations. For more information about historical preparations of pies and fish, check out Early Italian Recipes, Cereals, Bread, Pasta, and Pies, and Early Italian Recipes, Fish, Seafood, and Fish Sauces, containing recipes from the antiquity to the end of the Renaissance. More translations of medieval sources, including Maestro Martino's Libro de Arte Culinaria and articles on historical food, are available on our Patreon page. You'll find all the links in the description below, along with the links to buy us a beer and purchase our merchandise to support our work. We cook the pastello in the oven for about 45 minutes, depending on the size of the trout and the thickness of the dough. Then we pour some orange juice into the hole while the pastello is still hot. This trout was amazing, fragrant with spices, slightly sour with orange, and juicy. It would be perfect not only for a medieval banquet, but also for a traditional Italian dinner. You can also try this recipe with another fish, changing the spices and using either orange juice or rose water, or both, as recommended in Anonimo Toscano's cookbook and the Libro de Cucina, to experience the refined variety of flavors typical of medieval Italian cuisine. If you're interested in ancient foods and flavors, subscribe our channel and consider supporting us on Patreon.